Welcome back to the channel Break from Fear with Teri Pickens. This is a channel where I provide the education on our world, our society, our small community living in survival mode. Survival mode is not a place for anybody to live in. It's a mode for you to live or die. And you can't be living and dying every moment of your life. If you are, you pay a really bad consequence. 20 years ago, I had a download, and this information stands true 20 years ago till today, where it tells that as human beings, we fail, or we have failed to protect our young children from their fears when they are in their animal or instinct or their primal mode. Primal, you understand, you see the animals, including domesticated ones, where they don't have reasoning. If they feel that energy of fear, they will attack. And so we see this manifest in the big world where wild animals are afraid of humans. The only reason for that, we live in fear, and they pick up that energy and detect that fear. So today, just to remind you, when children are not protected, they go into survival mode permanently and start living there. And the reason that happens, usually the environment is a kind of emotional or psychological minefield, similar to physical minefield soldiers encounter in war, where they're mines and you can be blown up at any second. In the emotional minefield, there are dangers. It's either a guardian or parent. The person who has the power watching over the child could be an addict, could be corporal punishment, could be sex abuse. It could be anything that the powerless child has to face, and they detect, like the animals, that energy. And so they have to create ritual or ways to protect themselves. And in another video, we talked about many of those symptoms, including autism or anxiety or ADD, ADHD. I'm not going into that today. Today, I wanted to ask the question, if this is a fact, then we're living in a culture or a world where people are living and growing up in survival mode. And if that is the case, the question to ask is, what would that world look like? And what would be the symptoms of that? So to give you an idea, I thought I'd remind you of certain symptoms of survival mode. And then you be the judge when I tell you what's happening in the world, and you can decide if it's responsible. So we think of survival mode being a place, I'll give you, if you stay until the end, I will give you a pearl of wisdom on getting out of survival mode. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Very soon I will be interviewing people who will be telling you what their minefield environment was like during childhood. That will be coming up. But today, let's look at the culture and answer the question, are we in a culture of survival mode? So survival mode, to begin, is me, myself, and I. Instead, it really should be we in the parasympathetic. But when you're in the sympathetic, it's me. Why? Logically, survival is already equipped within each person. You don't have to call a friend. If you're in danger, your body's already equipped to know what to do. So it's live or die. So appropriately, it's me, but really, for day-to-day living, we should be in the parasympathetic, where it's we. There's indifference when you're in survival mode. The opposite of that in the parasympathetic would be compassion. Instead of having compassion for people and helping people, we have an indifference. Then there is the competition instead of cooperation. When you're at peace, you cooperate and support your fellow man. When you're in survival mode, you look at everything as competition. And once again, that makes sense. If it's do or die in survival mode, you cannot cooperate, because how would you know who to trust? It's competition where even though it's emotional or psychological, the idea is that I survive over you. If you get to win, then I am dead. Always keep in mind when you're thinking of the symptoms that they're all psychological. Let's look at lawlessness. Last video, we talked about lawlessness. Lawlessness, another word, when you're in survival mode, you're lawless. You can use the word anarchy. You're intolerant, you're barbaric. And the simplest word we all know and joke about is when people are stubborn. We don't realize the severity of that. And the opposite would be to like rules, to use your integrity, to understand that rules govern the day-to-day functioning and be okay with that. So the stubbornness of the lawlessness, part of where that comes from is when you're in the minefield environment, your rights are taken away. It's someone who controls you or someone who is over controlling. So that takes away your ability to express your own need. And the result of that is stubbornness. You're rigid if you're in survival mode instead of being flexible. You have issues with trust instead of trusting. You suffer from unbelief instead of having belief or trust. And you live on that. Those are not all, but I want the video to be short. So you live on a polar line. It's extremes. It's a line from one corner to the next. And really, health is living in balance in the center of that line. So everything that you see in survival mode, if there's someone who can receive, you're going to meet someone else who has a hard time taking or receiving from someone else. And we know God said, taking and receiving is a marriage made in heaven, simply because God doesn't want anything from us. He has to give us. So you have to be able to do both. As much as you can take, you have to also be able to give. So I just wanted to give you some headlines and you could think about it. Recently, a football player was shot while dying in New York City. That's someone's career down the drain. This is someone who's in their 20s. A singer was recently slammed for dressing inappropriately during the U.S. national anthem at a football game in Spain. 442 U.S. mass shootings has happened in this year, 2025. 442. Almost 7,000 mass shootings has happened in our country since January of 2013. If you think for a moment that that's not frightening, think again, that's really frightening. And the one thing I'm going to close the video for you to think about the children we're raising in survival mode, and think of what your future in 5, 10, 15, 20 years will look like. Let's end here in the pearl of wisdom, because you stayed until the end. Think of all the symptoms I gave you and fight to go to the opposite, your parasympathetic system. I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be done. Until next time, wishing you the best. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.